What's going on, everybody? So we hit 50,000 subscribers, which is honestly just wild to say out loud. And I didn't really plan some big dramatic video for it. I figured we would just do a very normal Q&A. I wanted to answer your guys' questions, whether it is about YouTube or finance or just basically any questions you had. I tried my best to answer them. But first, I have to say a huge thank you to anybody who has supported this channel along the way. Like, bottom of my heart, you guys are super awesome. I really do appreciate it. And the only reason that this channel has done well is because you guys have shown a ton of support. So I am very humbled to be in this position and I appreciate it a lot. So I decided on answering 30 questions because I didn't want this video to be 45 plus minutes long, and there were 150 comments on my post. So if I didn't answer your question, I apologize, but also some of my answers will cover other questions too that people ask. So let's go ahead and jump into the questions, and any suggestions that I give people or opinions that I give people, let me remind you guys, this is not financial advice. I'm not a professional financial advisor. I wanted to get that out of the way. These things are just my opinion. So please remember that it's not 200% factual. Like, make sure you research stuff yourself, but I did want to at least say this on the front end of the video. That way I'm not having to say it every time I answer a question that's slightly relating to finance. So let me preface that and let's jump into it. So the first question is, what made you get into content creation? Was it something you've always wanted to do? And who inspired you to create content getting started? So what made me want to get into content creation was I've always wanted to be like a YouTuber, I guess you could say, like even when I was younger. I'm 27 right now. When I was in middle school, I used to watch FaZe Clan, watch all those trick shotting videos. I used to watch Optic and all those gaming videos as well. And I always just thought making YouTube videos was really cool. Like, not even like the following or the subscribers. I just thought it was cool that people could make these really cool edits online. And I also thought it was cool that people could have a community that they could interact with. And so that side of it always just seemed really interesting to me. So it's definitely something I've wanted to do for a long time now. Now, who inspired me to start, creating content? Honestly, I wouldn't say it was one channel in particular because I've watched so many different types of YouTubers over the years. I've watched COD YouTubers, finance YouTubers. I mean, even the fitness community, I've watched quite a few people here and there, as well as film and photography. There was a certain era where like the travel influencers, I would watch quite a bit too. The main one I would say that kind of inspired me to start creating more finance related content is this guy named Joseph Carlson. He has a great channel where he analyzes stocks super in depth. He talks about different news and how he's reacting to it. And he's been documenting his channel for years now. I want to say since like 2019. I first found him around COVID time. So I think it was around 2020 when I first started watching him. So I would say in regards to the finance related content, he was definitely one of my inspirations. Now, he does invest into individual stocks. I would focus more on ETFs, but still, that's the main person who I'd say inspired me. So that's question one. Question two is, I can tell you're a COD kid. Who were your favorite COD YouTubers? And this is a great question. My favorite COD YouTubers, I would say, are Whiteboy7 Street. I also like KYR Speedy, and then Mr. Raffle Waffles. If you know him, he does like the zombies guides. So those are definitely my favorite COD YouTubers. I also liked this guy named Luna. He was really good. He does like storytelling and stuff like that. Same thing with Goblin. They're both really good. But Goblin's actually somebody I've started watching more recently the past couple of years. And then there was this other stoner, I would say, COD YouTuber. His name was Xcode. So I used to watch all of those people. Those were definitely some of my favorites. Whiteboy7 Street was my go-to for the longest time though. So I love that question. Now the next one is, how much were you taught about money growing up? What do you see within your own family circle that you agree with or don't agree with others doing? And have you tried to help anyone around you with financial situations? This is a great question. So in regards to money growing up, I learned everything from my dad. In regards to investing, he did not teach me anything, but he did teach me how to make a budget, how to track your expenses, which is extremely important. And he also taught me how to manage a credit card when I was pretty young. I think we got my first credit card when I was like 16 or 17. I think he had to like sign off for it. And then once I was like 18 and in college, I was starting to use it a little bit more. The main thing that I agree with that my family did was budget and live within their means, because that is something I'm always preaching. Regardless of whether you make a lot of money or you make a little bit of money, you should always follow that, or else you're never going to build real wealth. The thing I don't agree that my family did was they didn't invest a ton of their money back in the day. Like, my dad was an Amazon Prime member in the year 2000. Imagine if he just put $100 in the stock. Like, come on, dad. Same thing with Apple. Like, growing up in the early 2000s, he had an Apple computer, and looking back on that now, I'm like, damn, dad, you could have just thrown $1,000 at the stock and you'd be just sitting on a mountain of cash. And so I would say not investing as much is one thing that they really did not do, but they did save a lot. And I think both my parents have pensions, so that's the main way they're retired. So it's not like they had to invest, but regardless, that is kind of the main thing that I've learned there. Now, in regards to helping my family members with financial situations, sometimes I'll talk to my aunt a little bit about money. I mean, she does very well with her money, so it's mainly just her and I just talking about news and different things like that. And I do help my parents with a little bit of investing, but again, they both have pensions, so they don't really need to invest the money. But for the most part, I just have them doing ETFs very similar to myself. And I love this question because it's very important that when you have a family one day, if you decide to make sure you teach them good financial principles. principles, or else your kids are going to just be absolute hell for you. And although you can't control everything they do, if they can just at least learn the basics, budgeting, living within their means, learning how to save money and buy up things that they want to own, these are really important things that can definitely stick with them long term. So love that question. The next one is, do you watch sports? What teams do you like? I do love sports. I love basketball is kind of the main sport I like. I also love football and then baseball. So basketball and baseball, I am a New York guy. I love the New York Knicks. I hopped on the Linsanity train in 2013 and I have completely stuck to it. Big Jalen Brunson guy, but these guys are always in hell when it comes to the playoffs. So hopefully they can get their shit together. And then in regards to baseball, I've always been a New York Yankees fan. I know, boo, throw the tomatoes at me. I get it. But growing up, I absolutely loved Derek Jeter. I loved playing shortstop. And so that was the main reason I hooked onto the Yankees. Now, I did not grow up in New York. I didn't even grow up near that side of the country at all. I'm from the West Coast, but those were the two teams I like. Now, in regards to football, I am actually a New Orleans Saints fan, and that team and that franchise right now is just in franchise hell. So don't even want to talk about them, but I love Drew Brees back in the day. Him, Reggie Bush, Marquise Colston, Jimmy Graham, that era of them, oh my God, to die for. So those are my sports teams that I really like. I don't really watch a ton of college sports. I'll watch a little bit here and there, but for the most part, I do like professional sports. So next question after that is, how do you deal with feelings of envy, especially when your close friends or relatives are highly successful or at least in a better position than you? This is a great question and something that is very relatable to anybody, because even when you think you're doing phenomenal, there's always going to be a bigger fish. I always tell myself and remind myself that whether it is your friends, whether it is a coworker, or whether it is a family member, there's a good chance that there are people out there that might be doing better than you. And the main thing I would advise for you to tell yourself is focus on your own journey, the exact same way when you're going to work out in a gym. Don't sit there and stress about guys that are lifting more weight than you. Focus on how you can progress more over time. And I've noticed the less that you focus on other people and the more you focus on yourself, you actually progress even quicker. So that is kind of the main piece of advice I would say there, as well as comparison is the thief of joy. Like I just said, there's always going to be somebody, better than you at whatever you're doing, whether it is, again, it could be working out, it could be money, it could be your job. No matter what, try not to compare yourself to other people, because you're just going to feel like shit. Even if you get a big raise, there's somebody out there that's probably making more money. There's always, like I said, there's just always somebody in a better position than you. So try to just focus on your own journey. That's the main advice I'd give there. So love that question. Now, the next one after that is, was or is this your first time attempting to make videos on YouTube? So this is a great question because I actually had a full-on channel before this. I have made probably over 400 long-form videos on YouTube. My previous channel was called JP Dividends. I talked about dividend growth investing because that was a style of investing I did. I started that channel in, I think it was January of 2022, and I uploaded for about 3.5 years straight. Now, in August of 2025, this most recent August, I was planning on starting this channel that I currently have, and I was going to have my main channel, the dividend one, as well as this channel on the side. And what happened was, when I went to go delete an old second channel, it was linked to the same email as that channel, and so it deleted the entire channel. Now, that channel only had 6.7 thousand subscribers, which is still a lot, don't get me wrong. Like, I really appreciated that community, and there are even people that comment on my videos today that are from that channel. But once that channel got deleted, I was like, all right, it's time to, kick it into drive with this new channel and just see where it goes. And like I just said, over 3.5 years, I only grew that channel to 6,700 subscribers, which is still great. There are people that go way longer that have a lot less subs, but in less than a year on this channel, I've already done almost 10x that amount. So that is just crazy to think about. I think with that previous dividend channel, it was a little bit too niched down. Like, it was too focused into a certain area of finance, which is why this channel might be doing a little bit better, because it's a lot more broad level finance, but that's just my guess. And so the follow up to that question was, what prompted you to start posting about finances? I had already been posting about finances. That's why I feel like I at least have somewhat of an understanding of the YouTube algorithm, which is part of the reason I think this channel has done well. And I just try to be as honest and transparent as possible. And so, like I said before, I had that dividend channel I worked on for 3.5 years. On that previous channel, it took me over 2 years before I made a single dollar from YouTube. And I had hit the 1,000 subscriber mark, but you also need 4,000 watch hours. So that part did take me a little while to get to. And the thing that sucked about that whole thing was YouTube did absolutely nothing to recover my channel. They were like, hey, well, we gave you a warning. I was like, I was signed into the second channel, you guys. Why would I think that my main channel would get deleted when I'm clearly signed into this other one? But hey, one door closes, another one opens, and I'm super grateful for this current channel. So that's a little bit of my YouTube background. And I think I have around like 45, 46 videos on this channel. Like I said, with that channel, I had around, I think it was 350 to 360 videos, all long form. I'm not talking about any shorts there. So, it's a lot of time and a lot of effort, probably thousands of hours that went into it. Next question is, how do you prepare your videos? Do you have a script, or do you just start recording and flow with the topic and then edit it? That is a great question. The first thing I do is I come up with the idea for the video, and then I build an outline for the video. video. So I don't have a script where I'm reading off words. Again, I just try to talk the way I naturally talk. It's kind of like if you guys have had presentations in school, they tell you not to read off the slides, but instead maybe have a bullet point and you look at the bullet point and know, hey, I'm going to talk about this for about, 2 or 3 minutes after looking at this bullet. Or maybe you even have sub bullets under that. So it reminds you, hey, I'm going to talk about this for a minute, this for a minute, this for a minute. That's kind of how I structure my videos. That way I'm talking naturally and I'm not sitting there reading off a script. I do not like doing that. And also typing out a script would be an extremely manual process. Just having kind of a broad level outline with a couple of different sections and bullets, to me, it's just a lot easier to maintain the flow of the video with that. So that is how I prepare my videos. I basically just record the audio, edit the audio, and then I drag the COD footage over it. So it's pretty simple there. So the next question after that is, you often talk about investing in 401k match and Roth. However, what if someone is in their 20s looking to eventually buy a home? What would a middle of the road goal for life look like and where? Thanks for what you do, bro. Been here a while. Congrats. Well, really appreciate the support there. What I would do middle of the road here is I would probably get your 401k match. And then it depends how quickly you want to save up for the house and how much you can put away. I mean, that's a huge aspect of it, but I would at least get that 401k match and then maybe try to max out the Roth if you can. And then any money left over, save up for the house. Now, if you don't have any money left over after that, which I completely understand, then I would say get the 401k match at least, because that's free money, and then put the rest of the money into a high yield savings account to save up for the house. Again, just my opinion, but that's what I would do there. The next question after that is, should you build an emergency fund before investing into a brokerage? The answer to that is yes. You should have an emergency fund that is typically 3 to 6 months of expenses. That is typically the advice a lot of people give. So yes, that is the answer to your question there. The next one after that is, what ETF international market do you recommend to invest in as a beginner? The main one I think a lot of people really like is VT, which I believe is just every stock. So it's a mixture of US stocks as well as international stocks. There's a whole community called the Bogleheads, and they basically follow this guy named Jack Bogle, who is the founder of Vanguard. And a lot of people that like VT really like it because if the US underperforms over the next decade, the international stocks will be there to, pick up the slack. But if US outperforms, you're not completely excluding that either. So you own everything, which is part of the reason that people like it. I believe that is a really good international market ETF, but make sure you do your own research before you invest into it. The next question after that is, how do your investments/savings play into your relationship? Many relationships give away to financial stress. This is an excellent point. I could probably make an entire video talking about this, but the main thing I would say is you have to make sure you have financial boundaries in your relationship. What I mean by this is, obviously you have to decide, whether you're dating or married, who's going to pay for certain stuff, who's not going to pay for certain stuff. If you're in a relationship, you want to make sure that, hey, this is money that's always going to be going into savings for me. I do not want to have to tap into it. This is a pretty firm boundary I'm going to set. And if you expect me to tap into that, we're going to have a discussion about it. I think it's really important to mainly just communicate with either the person you're dating or the person you're engaged or married to and figure out a good plan for what works for you. I do think once you're married, what a lot of people do that I think would work really well is that you have your own personal account. So this is your fund money. You can do whatever you want with it. The person you're married to also has their own fund money account. They can do whatever they want with it. And then there is a shared account where either both of you or one of you puts money into for certain bills. Things like your groceries, your rent, your mortgage, whatever that looks like for you, your utilities, all that kind of stuff. All of your needs go into the shared account. Now, obviously in most relationships, people don't make the exact same amount. So however much you guys each put in, that is up to you. But I do think that is a very healthy way to manage your finances, especially once you're merging your lives. So love that question. The next one after that is, how much were you investing a month when you were making $50,000 to $60,000 a year? Now, during this year that I was making $55,000, this was back in 2022 when I first moved across the country. I was working as a financial analyst at a healthcare company, so I was making exactly $55K a year. And that was the year I was saving up to buy my house. So investing wise, I was only investing a couple $100s a month. Like I was actually tracking it, but I think it was somewhere between typically like $200 to $400 a month. So I think that year I might have invested, I don't know, maybe like 5,000 to 6,000, maybe 7, if not a little bit more. But for the most part, I was trying to save up and buy a house. So if you were to add up my savings plus my investing, I would say it's probably around $1,700, $1,800, maybe $2,000 a month. Again, that's if you're combining the two. So let's pretend that I invested $400, then I probably saved around $1,600. That's just from what I can remember off the top of my head. In regards to the savings, I don't remember every single month there, but the investing, I do actually have that log, so I can kind of see that a little bit, but that is typically how much I was investing. Now, one thing I do want to note was when I was making $55,000 a year, I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment by myself, and during this phase of my life, I was extremely frugal, almost an unhealthy level of frugality, and I'm probably going to make a whole video about this later on. In my apartment, I'm not kidding when I say this to you guys, I had obviously your normal appliances. I had a fridge, washer, dryer, microwave. I think I had an air fryer too, but I did not have any big stuff. So what I mean by that is I had a bed and I had a desk, and that was it. I would either eat at my desk and play video games or watch shows, and then I'd lay down in my bed to go to sleep. And then I also had a dresser too, but I did not have a couch or a dining table or a TV or anything like that because I was trying to be as frugal as possible, and I did that for almost an entire year. Nowadays, I'm not like that. I do try to enjoy life a little bit more. And so yes, I do currently have a couch, but back then I was extremely frugal. Like I said before, honestly, to an unhealthy level. If somebody wanted to go get drinks with me, I'd say, no, I don't want to spend money. Like I refuse to spend money on stuff I did not have to. And so I am definitely glad I've changed a little bit in that sense because I definitely enjoy life a lot more now. So the next question after that is when you started making videos, for what purpose did you start it? Was it to share your progress in your journey of finance, or was it to share your knowledge? By the way, love your content and you have helped me out a lot. I really appreciate the support there. The purpose for these videos in this channel is to help everyday people, specifically guys that are between the ages of 18 to 30 that are just trying to get their shit together, because I know exactly what it's like to be 22 years old and feel like complete shit about yourself, feeling like you have no sense of direction. And although I don't have all my shit together today, I definitely am in a lot better place than I was 3, 4, 5 years ago. And so if there's any knowledge that I can share to somebody that is 17, 18, 20 years old that could put them in a better position 3, 5, 10 years from now, I'm always going to share it. So that was the main purpose of this channel, was basically just to help specifically guys, because I don't know what it's like to be a girl when you're 22, but I do know as a guy when you're 22, you feel a lot of pressure to do really well financially. And I know I definitely felt that pressure. And when I was driving for DoorDash back then, I was not feeling great about myself, especially because I had a bachelor's degree in finance and I really wasn't doing much with it. So that is the purpose and the main goal of my channel. The next question here, and this is more of a scenario, but it says, at 23 years old, how should I balance investing for long-term growth and saving for a home down payment in the next 7 to 10 years? I would say in regards to your home down payment, you want to put that in a high yield savings account. Please do not invest that money, because if the market drops 5 years from now, then it's going to take a couple of years to rebound and catch back up to where it was before. So put that money in a high yield savings account. Next, I would say to try to split that money 50-50. So if you have an extra $1,000 that you're going to invest each month, maybe you put 500 away in high yield savings for the house and then invest 500. That is at least the strategy that I would do there. It obviously depends how much money you're putting away and how long it's going to take you to save up for that down payment, but 7 to 10 years does give you quite a bit of time. So if you can buy a house by the time you're 30 years old, I mean, you're in a great position, especially if you're investing along the way. The next question after that is, how would you structure an emergency fund with someone who lives at home with really low expenses and plans to live there for a few more years? Hypothetical expenses when moved out or current expenses? I would say if you really don't have much expenses right now, I think a good emergency fund would probably be somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000. Again, I always say 3 to 6 months of expenses, but if you really don't have expenses, this is a great question, because you're like, well, how much should I save up? I would say that exact amount, like somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000. I think you should be good. I think 20,000, you're being pretty conservative. I think if it's only 3,000, you're being a little bit too risky there. So that's just kind of my take. So that's actually a great question there, and something I could definitely talk about in a video a little bit more in depth. But the next question after that is, what clicked with you to know that the money guys were the real deal? Did someone tell you to trust that they were legit? Did you like the professionalism, the way they show the math on how things work? I'm a longtime listener of Brian and Bo, and I'm trying to figure out what really makes them better. Is it because they truly care about our finances? This is a great question, and the Money Guy Show is what I referenced in my last video talking about what order should you put your money into. The main reason I knew they were the real deal is because I job shadowed a financial advisor when I was in college, and basically everything that Bo and Brian say was the exact same stuff that I was learning from this financial advisor. The exact order of things, it is pretty much spot on to that. Not only that, but they show the math to back it up, and I think that's really important. I think that's what separates the Money Guy Show versus somebody like Dave Ramsey. There's certain things that Ramsey says that the math just simply does not make sense, but the Money Guy Show really backs it up, and they know the value of a dollar today. They basically show if you're 20 years old right now, a dollar today could be worth like $88 like 40 years from now. Like that type of stuff I think is really important for people to know. So I would say it's mainly the math, as well as me just having a slight background in finance and understanding that what they were saying was pretty similar to what I've heard before. The next question after that is, hey JP, what type of taxes do you have to pay when investing with brokerage accounts, and how would that be done? So how it works with brokerage accounts is you only get taxed when you either sell for a gain or you receive dividend income in a brokerage account. So if you hold the stock for less than a year, it's taxed at short-term capital gains. Longer than a year, it is long-term capital gains. If you want to know the taxes on that, you can look it up. Like there's actual tax brackets that'll show you what short-term capital gains looks like versus long-term capital gains. And normally at the start of the following year, so let's pretend that you sold a stock for a $5,000 long-term capital gain in 2025. When either January or February of 2026, the following year, the company that you invest with should give you something, or they should have a statement or a document available called a 1099 form. This is going to show you all of your dividend income, all of your capital gains, any capital losses, things like that. So that is how the tax situation works there. The next question after that is, what was your financial situation like growing up? When did you start investing in your future, and what were the most impactful steps you took? Now I'm going to just be 100% transparent with you guys. I came from a very middle class family. We weren't balling the fuck out by any means, but we weren't struggling with money either. So like I said, pretty normal family. I didn't grow up in some huge house, but I also did not come from the struggle, and I'm not going to pretend like I did, because I honestly hate when people do that. It's almost like in the movie 8 Mile when Eminem's rapping in the last battle and he hits the guy with you went to Cranbrook, that's a private school. That's what I think of anytime people pull stuff like that. So that was my financial situation growing up. Very normal, very middle class. I started investing when I was 21 years old, right after I graduated college. The most important steps I took was starting. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm not going to start till I make more money, or I'm going to wait for the market to drop. You can give yourself a million excuses as to why you should not start today, but the best time to start is today, and the next best time is tomorrow. Or I might have butchered that phrase, and it actually goes that the best time to start was yesterday, the next best time to start was today. Regardless, starting is the main thing, and that is the most impactful thing you're going to do. Next question after that, this one's a COD related question. What is your favorite Call of Duty multiplayer? Like I said, I grew up watching FaZe Clan, KYR Speedy. It is Modern Warfare 2 without a doubt. There is nothing that floods your brain with more serotonin as a 12-year-old in the year 2011 or 2012 than getting an AC-130 and just pub stomping people. And so that is why that is my favorite Call of Duty, especially when you got good enough and you'd run the Harrier Strike AC-130 nuke combo. I mean, oh my God, that shit was the best. So that is my favorite COD multiplayer, although there are a ton of really good ones. The next question after that is, what is the biggest piece of advice you'd give to someone who's just turning 18 and wanting to set themselves up for financial freedom in the future? Love this question. The biggest piece of advice I would give is to follow the financial steps that I talk about in my last video. Build an emergency fund, try to start investing, just get some skin in the game. It doesn't matter if you have $10 or $25 or $10,000, just try to start. That is one of the most important things you can do. Once you truly understand how to live within your means, try to follow some type of a budget, you're getting your 401k match, you're starting to, invest into your Roth IRA or different accounts, then the next thing you're going to want to focus on is how can you grow your income? Now, there are a lot of different ways to do this, whether it is starting your own business, whether you take the 9-to-5 route, whether you job hop, or whether you work for a really good company that promotes, although that is very hard to find nowadays. That is the next thing I would do. Once you kind of get the financial stuff dialed in a little bit and you really get the habits and the psychology of things mastered, because the only way for you to invest more and to actually reach your financial goals over, if you want it to happen as soon as possible, which I think most people do, the best thing you're going to do is find ways to scale your income. And I know that's so easy to say from my perspective, but I mean, that's the truth. You have to somehow find a way to make more money. And so there's a bunch of ways to do this. I have a couple that I've talked about in some of my videos, but that is one thing you're going to want to really focus on once you get stuff sort of dialed in there. So great question there. The next one after that is, what are some of your go-to hobbies? I'm a kind of outdoorsy person, so I love hiking. I also love film and photography. I talked about that a little bit at the beginning of the video, but I actually have a DJI Mavic 2 Pro, I believe is what the drone is called. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't flown it in a little while, but I do really like to travel and take pictures and, film videos. And so I love film and photography. And like I said, I also love hiking, kayaking. I like lifting weights too, running. I just really like being outside in the sun. Like that is something that is just great for my mental health and physical health. And so those are my go-to hobbies typically. The next question after that is, could you talk more about your career, what you do and have done in the past? Yep, I absolutely can. I did talk about this in a prior video, I think more towards the beginning of my channel. But basically my career, I would say, started in 2022. I was a financial analyst then for a healthcare company. With that job, I was mainly advising people. It's almost like I was a consultant for different hospitals or doctors that own their own practices. And it was almost like they were outsourcing their finance department. So I would work with a couple of senior analysts and we would basically present to them their financial information. Pros of that job was I learned how to present to some pretty high up people at different companies, which I thought was pretty cool. I also started to get a lot better at Microsoft Excel. The cons were that not my manager, but his manager, I absolutely hated. The guy sucked. He was the type of guy that just thought that work was your whole life. It should be everyone's whole life. And I just do not agree with that at all. Now, the next job after that, I ended up becoming a senior analyst. This was more in the telecom industry. This job was a little bit, I was still doing a lot of PowerPoint at that job, but this one was more financial modeling, really building out 3, 5, 10-year models. I started to get really advanced at Microsoft Excel at this point, and I was able to actually work on some pretty big projects and get a lot more scope towards like CFO of a lot larger companies, which was pretty cool. Specifically, the company I worked for, I had a lot more scope to him as well as the senior vice president. So I thought that was a pretty cool aspect of that job. Not really much cons to that job, I would say, besides the fact that they were lowballing me compared to the other senior analysts, and I did not know that. So that is something I definitely would try to avoid in the future. In my current job, I am a senior analyst. I work on the technology side of the business though. So again, a lot of financial modeling, very heavy Excel work, a lot of presentations, and a lot of very quick turnarounds. But I mean, this job is basically looking at a lot of different variances, looking at forecasts, looking at headcount, looking at different expenses and seeing which teams can adjust or not adjust and basically try to tell the story to the higher up people. That way, if we're straying away from the budget, we can get back down to earth and figure out a good solution. That is is the simplest way I can explain this job. It definitely goes a lot more depth than that, but again, I'm trying to answer all these questions, so that is probably the best answer I could give you for now. The next question after that is biggest challenge when job hopping, looking for a higher salary. This is a great question. I've actually thought about this before. The biggest challenge when you're job hopping and you're looking for a higher salary is, one, the job market could just be complete shit. So it is a very testing process. It could take you 3, 6, 8 months to find a new job. But in my opinion, the biggest challenge is understanding the team you're going to work for and the company culture. Because you can sit there and ask them any questions you want. They're going to tell you it's all great, but you won't actually know what it's like until you start working for them and you see what it's like month 1, 2, 3. So that's definitely the hardest thing. Luckily for me right now, the team I work for is really good, although I have complained about them a little bit more lately, but for the most part, it is a really good team. And so I would say that is the biggest challenge, is understanding what the actual work environment is going to be like, because even if you ask them about it in the interviews, they're going to always say it's a really good environment. They're always going to hype it up. So that is one thing that is a little bit challenging on how to gauge that when you're in the interview process. So great question there. The next one is, what is the best way to start building credit in your early 20s? What I would say here is to open up a credit card with not a super high credit limit. Maybe it has $2,000 or a $5,000 credit limit, and start just putting your small expenses on it. I'm talking about $10 for fast food or $5 for coffee, or just, when you buy gas, let's say it's $30, $40, $50+, throw it on the card and make sure you're zeroing that card out very often. This is going to help you start to build up credit and build up a credit history. And then over time, you can start to scale those expenses if you want to. You don't have to. But then if you have $1,000 expense for, let's say, an appliance or something like that, then you could throw it on the card. And the key thing I want to reiterate is make sure you're zeroing the card out. If you're going to throw stuff on a credit card and just not pay attention to the credit card for months at a time, you should not have a credit card. You're not responsible enough to. You need to be zeroing it out and checking your balance, or at least knowing, hey, maybe I'm not going to zero it out this paycheck, but by this time, within the next, I would say, month or 2 or 3 months, this will be zeroed out. Because the last thing you want to do is run yourself up into $10,000+ of credit card debt, because that is a very shitty hole to dig yourself out of. The next question after that is, what course of action would you recommend to someone who has just been laid off? They said, I'm a junior software engineer with only 2 years of experience and was laid off in January. Just curious to hear what you have to say. Thanks for the great videos. Well, let me just start out by saying I appreciate the support. And number 2, I'm really sorry to hear that you got laid off. That is definitely a really hard position to be in. One of the first things I would actually advise, and I don't know if I don't think most people will agree with this, but I would actually say to go find just a job in the meantime that's going to be able to pay the bills. I'm not saying you got to go right back into a software engineering job. Even if you can find a restaurant job where, it's a job that has tips involved in it, that typically is going to help you at least cover bills in the meantime. And then in your off days, try to apply for as many software engineering jobs as you can. Or if there's a different job that if you have different skills from the current job that you could relay into a different type of job that maybe isn't a software engineer, but is something similar, apply to those roles as well. The reason I'd recommend just getting some type of job that has tips is because then you can feel like you're not just sitting there making minimum wage. You at least have an incentive to make a little bit more money, whether that is bartending, waiting, bussing tables. I don't care. I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes you got to take one step back and then you're going to jump 2 steps forward. And it's not a permanent thing. You have to remind yourself of that. The thing that's also nice with some of those jobs is you don't have to work 5 or 6 days a week. So I would say just try to find some kind of job. Again, it doesn't have to be in the restaurant industry. You could work at a car wash, or you could just do some type of job that has a base salary plus a commission or something like that. But try to find something that you can at least do to make a little bit of money in the meantime, and then apply to as many jobs as possible. And make sure that you're doing pretty good on your interview skills and you're still practicing interviews with yourself. That way, once you do get an interview, you can absolutely crush it and then get hired for an actual job you want, whether it's a software engineering job or something similar to that. So that's just my 2 cents there. I know a lot of people may not agree with it, but I do think that's what I would do, at least if I got laid off right now. So the next question after that is, best way to build a financial plan for a married couple with one on the way: medical bills, savings, investing, etc. This question's a little bit hard to answer without having context. For example, do you guys have medical insurance, or are you paying stuff out of pocket? Because one on the way with, a really good insurance plan is a lot different than not having an insurance plan. But what I would say is cash. I would say whatever you think your 3 to 6 month emergency fund is right now, you might want to double it. So if that's $12,000 for you, you might want to start saving up to $24,000. But again, it really just depends how much this stuff is going to cost for you, especially in regards to the medical bills and the saving side of things. But I would say cash is going to be your friend during this initial phase of life once you actually have the kid, because I have heard that having a child is super expensive if you don't have health insurance. So I think cash is going to be your best friend in the meantime. Now, let's assume you already have the kid, your medical bills get fully covered, or you pay them off, whatever that looks like for you. Then at that point, I would just, like I said, try to start looking at what your expenses look like after having the child. I'm assuming they're going to go up because you're going to be paying for diapers and all kinds of things for the kid. So I would start looking at those expenses and seeing how they're going to change. college, and then adjust your emergency fund to account for that. And then besides that, I would just go back to investing and saving as consistently as possible, whatever that looked like for you before. But I think the main thing you're going to want to do here, especially with one on the way, is just like I said, cash is king in this position. And this is probably what I would do in this position as well. I'm not saying you have to stop investing permanently. If you have a 401k match, still try to get that if you can. If you have extra money, max out the Roth. It just depends really how much money you're making, as well as if you guys have insurance, and also how much is insurance going to cover for that hospital bill that you're about to get. But even if you save up a bunch of cash and you don't use all of it and you have a good emergency fund after that, you could always just invest that money a little bit later. So I don't think it's a big deal to just save cash. You really are going to want to play a lot of defense right here though. So great question. The next one after that is, I was told the most important financial decision you can make is the partner you have. How do you feel about starting a relationship with someone that has debt? That is a 100% fact, that statement. I do think it is very, very important which partner you choose. That is why I did not want to get married when I was 21, 22, 23 years old. I've always said that I wanted to wait until my later 20s. That way I was in a more financially stable position and I really had my head on straight and I had a lot better sense of direction. So I completely agree with that statement. Now, to actually answer your question, how do you feel about starting a relationship with someone that has debt? I think it's okay if somebody has debt. I think if you meet someone and they are a loyal, respectable person and they love you for who you are and you have similar morals and values and you're a team that can work together and really be in it for the long haul, I think it's okay if they have debt. Now, what you want to be very careful of is, are they digging themselves into more debt? Are they reckless with their spending? Because if somebody has debt, but they're slowly trying to turn it around and get on top of it, that is a lot different than somebody that's just still running up their credit card and digging themselves into a really big hole. You could meet the most perfect person in the world, but if they just keep spending money recklessly, that is a financial abuse divorce case waiting to happen. Try to avoid this at all costs. Now, assuming you're dating in your 20s, if you date somebody that went to college, there's a good chance they're going to have student loans anyways. So I think it's okay if somebody has debt. Again, it really does depend on how much debt it is, but because there's a big difference between $20,000 of student debt and $150,000. But also maybe the 150 is because they're going to like med school or something like that. So there's a lot of variables you have to account for, but I would not end a relationship with somebody just because they have debt, but I would not get into a relationship with somebody that does not have at least a plan or hope to get out of debt. If they're still recklessly spending, like I said, I just think that is a huge stressor and just a huge nightmare waiting to happen, even if the person seems perfect, because money is a really big thing in relationships. So that is my 2 cents there. The next question after that is, how do you play old COD games without running into modders? Are you still on PC or console? I play on console, I play on Xbox One, and I only play Team Deathmatch because nobody else is in Domination or Ground War or any of those other games. So sometimes I do get into modded lobbies, and you might have even seen that in some of the footage on some of the videos that I post, but for the most part, it seems like the lobbies are still pretty good. Although, like I said, there's not a ton of people. There's normally a few hundred people on at any given time. So that's why I'm always playing Team Deathmatch in my videos, if you haven't noticed. But with zombies, it does seem like there is a pretty solid community there, so I'm able to still match up with people. And I've occasionally found modders on that, but for the most part, it's pretty good. So that is actually question 29. Now, the 30th and final question, I think this is the main one that got upvoted, is how much are you making from your videos? Been here since a few thousand subs. Congrats, by the way. I really appreciate the support from anybody, whether you are here first 1,000 subs, first 500 subs, or whether you just subscribed in the past week. From my videos in the month of December, I made a little over $3,000. January, I also made a little over $3,000. February is not over yet, but I've made a little bit over $2,000 there. And that is just from AdSense. So this is a huge blessing. I mean, on my previous YouTube channel that I talked about in this video, I think my highest month from AdSense was probably like $200 something. So the fact that I'm making like thousands of dollars a month from this side hustle is just phenomenal. And I do try to save most of that money for taxes and also just hold quite a bit of that as cash, because like I've said in previous videos, life has been a little bit crazy for me lately. So I'm just trying to hold that as cash in the meantime until things kind of calm down a little bit. But again, this money that I am getting from YouTube, I am very, very grateful for, and it is all because you guys support the channel. So that is the 50,000 subscriber Q&A. That is it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like down below, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.